The coronavirus is the biggest threat this country has faced for decades, and this country is not alone.
To unleash the full power of the federal government in this effort today, I am officially declaring a national emergency.
Fans left devastated after finding out the F1 Australian Grand Prix is off. It comes after a member of the Mclaren racing team tested positive for the coronavirus.
From the Australian Grand Prix point of view, just want to say sorry to our fans and the health and safety and welfare of teams and people, the community generally has to take precedence.
2020 has come and gone in a way that no one really anticipated. For some time, and in a very long time at that, there was genuine uncertainty. The welfare of the people of this planet was at threat against an enemy that we couldn't even see. This was all extremely frightening as city streets became empty, panic buying began to set in, and for the most part, we didn't know what to expect. Sport had halted, and while we waited, we found new ways to rejoice and connect. Eventually, there became hope. There became hope that normality was on the horizon and that the resilience of mankind could not be doubted. News would come of the lowered infection rates, borders had opened up, and wow, could you believe it that in less than 4 months, professional sport was set to resume. There was indeed light at the end of the tunnel. And so it came. Floodlights for the biggest stadiums were lit once more, boxing ring ropes were tightened again, and for us motorsport enthusiasts, the 5 red lights were scheduled to go out. Were we treated to one of the best seasons of motor racing in a while? I'd argue so, but it's easy to look back on the results and think otherwise. 2 new winners, rising stars, return of great tracks, and to marry everything together, a flurry of surprising stories that came in such a short space of time, it's almost incredible to think what happened this year. To put it in another way, the year brought us so much doubt and distrust that the bar of expectation was set unprecedentedly low. And when the sport of Formula One came back from its extended hiatus, we loved every single second of it. This is why the next 10 years of the sport are so important. You're watching Vulcan Motorsport. From 2021 onwards, regardless of the pandemic's progress, the world anticipates flipping to the next chapter of life. That is also true for Formula One, and where such a year was set to bring a regulation overhaul, instead it will act as a short catalyst for trial and error ahead of the next generation of racing. And yes, this will truly be next generation. With the imminent changing of guard from the current world champions to a mere handful of new rising superstars expected in coming years, we can all but expect some serious fireworks among the lower ranks. The likes of George Russell, who most recently showed his hand in the fastest car ever conceived, proved his legitimacy as a future world champion, and is expected to move to Mercedes as early as 2022. The resulting switch will offer an eagerly anticipated 3-way battle for the driver's title between Verstappen, Leclerc and Russell. Then we move into the likes of newcomers Nikita Mazepin, Yuki Tsunoda and the return of Schumacher, the latter of whom I suspect will be watched with a very close eye. But we all know the direction in which the sport is heading: greener technology, cost caps and further revisions to bunch up the field. Starting with greener tech, we've already seen the gradual reduction on cylinders used on cars since the late 90s, and with it there's been a simultaneous implementation of hybrid powertrains. Couple this with more advanced aerodynamic packages and the result is faster and faster cars. This continuous evolution of vehicles will progress tenfold in the coming years, and whether we like it or not, investors' tastes have changed, and as the sport has become a marketing competition, it's more often than not that those deep pockets will steer the direction of the sport. So keep up with the times, and even encouraging change is the FIA's most important goal. Then we must consider what the series' distant cousin Formula E is doing and how this category is piggybacking off a growing consumer demand for all-electric vehicles. It's being seen as a new hip series, and I suspect that more and more of these developments that are made there will carry through to Formula One. Then there are the cost caps, which are imposed through the FIA's strict guidance for motorsports, as tax on higher spending teams will discourage bigger teams spending on new developments, and this will help stimulate more competition. The lower end of the field will bunch up with the middle order teams, but I still suspect that a battle between the top 2 or 3 teams at the sharp end of the grid will continue for the many decades to come. This decade will be crucial for former greats Williams to progress up the field, else they will fear dropping from the sport entirely. In 2020, this team found new owners and new funding, which the British team hopes will end the streak of pointless results. The cost cap should come into their favour, but they will still need to hit the ground running after the rule overhaul in 2020. And what about McLaren? Now, this is perhaps the most interesting team of the lot. Remember a few seasons back when they were the laughingstock of the sport? This is one of the most successful constructors of all time, and they're failing to compete even with midfielders. And now finally the team has grit their teeth and climbed back up to 3rd in the championship. With the incoming Daniel Ricciardo, the Woking outfit can expect bigger and bigger things this decade as they seek to achieve their first constructors title of the millennia. And that begs the next question: could we see a consistent 5-way battle for race wins? Red Bull, Mercedes and Ferrari, and then McLaren, and now even Racing Point, or should I call it Aston Martin? It's not impossible after all, and it's something that the sport really needs. Only time will tell. The next 10 years are vital. The FIA must absolutely nail what their ambitions are, as the sport is entering a tipping point with sinkhole costs, a loss of consumer taste, and rising concerns about the sustainability of the series. We are truly witnessing Formula One's own drive to survive. A tried and tested method is opening the doors to new markets. When Liberty Media took over the commercial rights, the sports outreach grew considerably. We were seeing broadcasting strategies which closer resembles the US sports strategy, and if you've ever watched a single sporting event based in America, you will know exactly what I'm talking about. Liberty Media were growing more hype around the sport, and that's precisely what was needed after Vettel's quartet in the early 2010s. But since then, we've grown. But truthfully ask the question, how much better has the racing actually got? Not so much, I'd say. Now, in this generation, the same playbook will be used, but in a different form factor. We've seen more and more attempts to bring back Grand Prix in Eastern markets and even non-traditional motorsport countries. Often these events will take place in urban street-style circuits as to inflate the footfall of the event. I mentioned this point in previous videos on Formula E and how the series has managed to breach into New York, where even Formula One is yet to step foot in. While for long-term Formula One enthusiasts might not approve of the newer Tilkedrome-esque circuits, the fact cannot be ignored that these strategic marketplaces will play a crucial role for the sport's sustainability. Like many of you who follow this channel, I can only hope that the FIA get the next 10 years absolutely correct. There's more than just sport that rests on this. Remember earlier I mentioned the series is a massive advertising platform too, and that there's a large loss of potential lost revenue. Most importantly, you wouldn't want your company tied to a failing single-seater category. Comment down below what you hope to see for the next 10 years of the sport. I also want to take this moment to welcome a lot of the new subscribers who've come as a result of the Lewis Hamilton video I posted last month. I never would have expected a response like this, and truly it's humbling to see, so for that I say thank you. There's a few collaborations down the pipeline with other fellow F1 content creators, so stay tuned, and 2021 will see a lot more content coming out from this channel. Cheers.